G'day! Hopefully you're doing very well, keeping healthy and safe. I'm doing pretty sweet on this side of this. Recently, I reviewed a glass-free 3D display laptop, which was the Acer Predator Helios 3D15. Now that had this groundbreaking stereoscopic 3D display, which you did not need glasses to actually experience 3D on the display. What an experience that was. And if you haven't checked that video out, but definitely worth checking out. I'll put a link in the description below so you can check it out after this. Now that Helios 3D15 had the best components and best performance that you could get here in 2023. Now I've actually got its much more modest cousin, and that is the Acer Predator Helios Neo 16. Now this is what I would say would be a mid-high spec on what that is, and geez, this thing is fantastic here. Now what actually the major difference is, what I see is actually the display. It does not have that 3D stereoscopic display from Spatial Labs. This is much what you say a normal gaming laptop display. And actually touch and feel and also the ports and stuff like that, very similar to the Helios 3D15. This is an i7 with RTX 4060 in this one here. So something much more modest that you will find, and probably way better on the wall compared to the Helios 3D15. Now, I will be testing the temperatures and fan noise, look at the performance and some of the features of this laptop, and as always, I will be putting timestamps along this video so you can skip to a different section. They may be interested, save you time. The display is a 16-inch display with an aspect ratio of 16:10. Now, there are actually two options. You can get the wide ultra extended graphics array or the wide quad extended graphics array version. Now both of them have a refresh rate of 165 Hz, so that's great for a lot of the gamers. Now when I test out the wide ultra extended graphics array, it managed to measure in a maximum brightness of 443 nits or candela per square meter, which is surprisingly bright, and I didn't have any issues when I was working outdoors or even for consuming multimedia or working on documents. As for the ghosting, it had very minimum amount of motion ghosting. It actually performed very well in the UFO ghosting test. Measuring the color gamut coverage of the 16-inch wide ultra extended graphics array, which has a refresh rate of up to 165 Hz, it resulted with 99.1% sRGB coverage, 74% Adobe RGB coverage, and 81.1% DCI-P3 coverage. Now this is not high enough for professional graphics work or video editing, but it still does a very decent job in reproducing colors for your amateurs. This is recorded from the 720p webcam from the Helios Neo 16. This is the video and audio unedited, so you can hear and see what the following webcam is like. Now I'm currently at a cafe at the moment, so I haven't got much light here on my face, and there's quite noisy around me. So I'd love to hear how your thoughts of the noise reduction and how this. Now, as I have some light on my left-hand side of this, but there's actually not that much light here on my face. So if you're not often invited to share much more light what I am currently at, I'm just giving you a bit of an idea of how on a more dark environment works. Definitely love to hear your thoughts. Put a comment below. The keyboard has a 4-zone RGB, which you can actually customize the RGB settings in the Predator Sense application. Really easy there. And there are actually 4 settings for the backlit keys: off, low, medium, medium high, and high. I'll consider these keys on the larger side, and it actually has above average spacing in between each keys. They have a very smooth texture to its surface, and they also have quiet keys as well, with a bit of a soft feel when you depress it, which is very unusual for a gaming laptop. So if you actually got some families and you want to actually be a quiet keyboard, this is one of those kind of very out of the market special, and this is actually good for those parents who actually game at night. And this is really comes down to your feel, as most gaming keyboards have more mechanical and clicky feel to it. This is very opposite of that. It's nice to see Acer still include the number pad on the right hand side. Now there is also a button at the very top left which actually controls the Predator Sense modes, which you can actually change from quiet mode, balance mode, performance mode, and also turbo mode. Now, as for the trackpad, it is a mechanical trackpad, which means it's hinged at the top and you can slowly, as you move your way down, to depress it, and it does physically goes down. Now, it's actually got a very silky, smooth surface to the trackpad, and it reacts very well. I didn't have any issues of it not being responsive, and it also has a multi-gesture as well. Now, actually quite a decent size. I wouldn't say this is overly large, and I wouldn't say it's small. It's actually quite a nice size trackpad. The Helios Neo 16 comes with 4 speakers, and when I tested out the maximum volume of speakers, it managed to measure a peak of 84.1 decibels. Now, I actually consider this on the medium loudness style compared to other laptops. As for the sound quality of the speakers, it does have some deep bass. It's not really low-end bass, but it's not like super loud deep bass, but still it does exhibit itself in their sound quality. Now, it does have some very strong highs, and it is surprisingly balanced in the mids with those strong highs, and it has some decent acoustics and does has a okay reverb, and it has some decent clarity out of the speakers. Overall, I find these speakers compared to other gaming laptops are pretty good. The Helios Neo 16 comes with a 90 watt-hour battery, and I managed to get 3 hours and 28 minutes for modern office battery life test and PC Mark 10, 2 hours and 10 minutes for gaming, and 7 hours and 10 minutes for video playback in the Procon battery life test. I would actually consider this just slightly above average compared to other gaming laptops. The weight of the Helios Neo 16 is 2.57 kilos, plus the 330 watt power adapter becomes a combined weight of 3.96 kilos you might be carrying around with you. Looking at temperature and fan noise for the Helios Neo 16, when I took my measurements, the ambient temperature in the room was 24 degrees Celsius. And just to give you a reference point, my hand was averaging around about 34 to 35 degrees Celsius in this temperature. So I took my base measurement when the computer was idle, and the hottest air around the keyboard measured a maximum of 41 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, it stayed dead silent at 35 decibels. And the average internal core temperature was 41 degrees Celsius. Then I put 20% load on the computer. That's pretty much average use. So that's tasks like office productivity work, surfing web, streaming video, and the hottest air around the keyboard measured a maximum of 43 degrees Celsius. And as for fan noise, it spun all the way up to 41 decibels, and the average internal core temperature was 52 degrees Celsius. Then I put 50% load on the computer, and the hottest air around the keyboard measured a maximum of 44 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan, it spun all the way to a maximum of 44 decibels, and the average internal core temperature was 74 degrees Celsius. Then I put 100% load on the computer in performance mode for the thermals, and the hottest air around the keyboard measured a maximum of 42 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, it spun all the way up to a maximum of 48 decibels, and the average internal core temperature was 71 degrees Celsius. I also measured the bottom back cover while I had 100% load, and the hottest air around the back cover measured a maximum of 47 degrees Celsius, and of course stayed at 48 decibels. Then I put the Helios Neo 16 in turbo mode just to release the maximum potential of the Neo 16, and the hottest air around the keyboard measured a maximum of 43 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan, it ripped all the way up to 60 decibels, and the average internal core temperature was 74 degrees Celsius. You do get substantially a lot more performance in turbo mode, but you also get quite a lot of fan noise for that. But that's alright if you're rendering, but as for playing games, I'll probably say sticking with the performance mode. What's also interesting is actually where the hottest area heat is actually concentrated, and that's around about where the right control key is, and around about where the arrow keys, which is really interesting. It's actually not an area that you normally touch, because you'll have your hand will probably arch, or you don't, if you're even using the arrow keys, then you'll just want to touch it very second. So you barely actually feel that much heat from this computer. And where fingers normally are when you're typing and all, that is actually really cool, because that's where the fans are really sucking in air. That part you can actually see hopefully in the thermals. And of course the palm rest, you just feel cool, which is absolutely fantastic. So this computer can run and you can have it on load and you can still easily work on this computer and touch it all about. Absolutely amazing. Let's have a little stability performance of the processor for long duration tasks in the Helios Neo 16. Now this one is configured with an i7 13700HX processor, and looked at Intel website reports this processor has a maximum turbo boost on the performance cores at 5 GHz and the efficiency cores at 3.7 GHz. And we do have a base clock speed reading of about 2.1 GHz reported by Windows for this processor. Now I do have this computer running on 100% load for over 4 hours, so that's the processor, memory, and also storage, and also have quite a lot of load on the graphics as well. Now I do have the computer also in turbo mode as well, so we do see that allow it to run it at its very best. Now I do have actual both of the fan system fans at pretty much 6,000 RPMs. We definitely did here, and we are looking at probably anywhere between 2.9 to about 3.2 gigahertz. I'm just going to average that around about 3 to about 3.1 gigahertz is probably what I would say. This is very much stable at. It's runs around that, which is actually really good because it is way above the base clock speed of 2.1 gigahertz, and we're holding this pretty nicely around this sort of, and that's on all the cores here. That's also fantastic. Now I have got also this on the temperatures. We can actually see that actually all the cores are running around about, I would say, an average of about 71 degrees Celsius. Now I'm going to actually switch this into performance mode so we can actually see how that runs for the scenario, and we'll see this actually drop a little bit in terms of the performance. So this is going to still run, and I'll definitely hear the fans spitting a lot less now, so it's not as loud. So at the moment we can just have a quick look. Now we're running around about edging around about 3,800 RPMs, and it's a lot more quieter now in this room. I can definitely say that. It's probably about half the speed of those fans, or nearly a little bit more, 60%. And I can definitely see that the actual speed of the process is now running about 2.9 to about, I would say, about 2.7. It will probably touch the 2.7 from what I saw earlier. You'll actually saw about 2.8 is what I'll say it'll be good. And now you see this is starting to just jump around between these numbers here. So you do get more performance in turbo mode, but you definitely pay by having to hear the actual fan, which is actually fine if you're rendering and you can walk away from the computer. But if you're working on the computer, I say stick to the performance mode. You actually get quite a lot of performance and not that was crazy fan noise. But when you do, it's at least allows you, it's there to go for it. Here's the results of the benchmarks performed on the Helios Neo 16. Here's the results for PassMark, Citybench, Crossmark, 3D Mark, PC Mark 10, Geekbench, Crystal Disk Mark, Procon Office, Procon Photo Edit, Procon Video Edit, Procon AI Machine Learning, Pugin Photoshop, Pugin Lightroom, Pugin Premiere Pro, Pugin DaVinci Resolve, Blender, Furmark, Octane Bench, Eugene Engine, and SpecView Pref. And some gaming benchmarks like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Far Cry 6, Cyberpunk 2077, and F1 2022. Having spent a bit of time with the Predator Helios Neo 16, I gotta say, I am very surprised by how well this Neo 16 performs. And what really surprised me, and it really shouldn't really surprise me because it does carry the thermal solution from the Helios 3D15, which I raved that it was such a fantastic thermal solution there and how stable that performance. And that's the same with this Neo 16. What a stable performance. And I did say I was comparing with the 3D15 that it was nearly like a workstation class one. That's the same what I'll say with this Helios Neo 16. I would actually compare this with a mobile workstation. It's that stable, absolutely fantastic. This thermal solution, definitely world class. Now, it does go pretty insane when you put it in turbo mode and let the fan rip like crazy, but unlike the 3D15, it does actually stay quite quiet most of the time unless it needs to vamp up that fan. It is more variable with the turbo mode. But what I'll say is, if you're working on the computer, I would just probably suggest leave it in performance mode, as you'll get most of the performance without all the crazy fan noise. But if you're actually rendering, you can walk away from the computer and you want the very best performance going, definitely chuck it into the turbo mode, let it rip, and you walk away from the computer while after it finishes and you come back and it's still all done. Absolutely, really, I'm pretty surprised by how well this is. Anyway, the rest of the components there, we've got a decent display. We've got actually, again, a very quiet keys for a keyboard for a gaming laptop, and like I said, I will actually compare it with a mobile workstation because of the quietness of those keys. And we've got a decent trackpad with very reactive and very nice texture there. We got very nice, decent speakers, even for a gaming laptop. These are probably what I'll say right up there. And the actual webcam is probably the only part I like to see improve, is have like 1080p option with everything like that. See that as we are in 2023. But that's good selection of ports, and it's very well built, and the price is definitely fantastic. Now, I hope you find this video informative and enjoyed it. If you did, either support my channel, smash that like button for me, share this video, it does help me out, and as always, imperfections in life makes it beautiful and interesting. And I'll see you next video.